Ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, welcome to another CryptoManiacs podcast. Joined once again by Taskmaster because it's always a good day when Taskmaster is here in his glory, shining. The sunglasses are on. It's a great day to talk blockchain and crypto. Task, what do you say, sir?
I say it's a day that ends in Y. So you and I show up, we make videos, we post on chain, we make comments, we upvote, we do the thing was we always do to support Hive, and we got a wonderful guest, somebody who's becoming a bit of a regular, I believe.
Yep.
And correct me if I'm wrong, John, but I believe this is his third trip to CryptoManiacs, maybe even fourth. I don't know. Fourth?
I think it's fourth. Because he's done, this is probably his third solo.
And he was on with Mark.
Right. I think. It might even be his fifth, dude.
Oh, I hope it's not my fifth.
Oh,
I
man.
don't remember
dude.
four.
Oh, then he's catching up to Brian of London. I mean, it's, Brian will get upset and have to come on 3 times in 2 weeks.
It's the best. It's the best. So a little bit of housekeeping before we jump into things with our good friend from Deluxe. We will be doing a giveaway at the end of the show, courtesy of Hive Blocks. They had a little competition on Twitter using the word HODL and doing a little bit of artwork. And Guilty Parties came to me and said, hey, could you do this? I was going to do it yesterday stream, but as you know, things happen when you're moving. I couldn't even get home in time. So I told them we could do it today and we'll do that. So there's a bunch of HBD going to be given away at the end of this. So hopefully you guys got entered to win. So that's all my housekeeping. Task. Let's rock, man. Let's see what Deluxe is up to, man.
Yeah, I think there's some things happening. And how you doing, Steve? What you been up to of late?
Moving around, doing stuff, trying to get settled somewhere.
So is this?
Is everybody moving? Am I the only one who's
it's
my
not,
same resident?
Even Blaine. I mean, it's Blaine. Disregard me. I mean, it's just.
Don't forget Starkers. Starkers is always moving.
Where is he? Right? Where in the world is Starkers?
I think about intelligence agencies from 3 separate countries are asking that same question. But anyway.
Stalkers wanted me to tell you guys that you have stole me from a conversation that could have impacted the future of Web 5.
We totally. I know. Yeah. Jack totally skipped 4, right?
I love what they've done with their tweets. They take Web 5 divided by 2, Web 2.5. So are you not quite buying the Jack Dorsey Web 5 propaganda? Is that safe to say?
I don't follow Twitter enough. That's what I can say. I think personally that Jack Dorsey is smart and understands that his platform has been used for evil and kind of wants to make up for that. But that's just hopeful thoughts in my head.
Do you think with Dorsey, just taking a little broader view, there's little doubt that he's a Bitcoin maxi. And I watched a video with Mark Andreessen and one of his people. And they said they tried to build some of the projects that they were funding on Bitcoin without much success. And they eventually moved to other chains to try to do it. I presume Ethereum, but I can't say for certain. What do you think the possibility or the potential of Dorsey's projects are going to be, whatever they are, and whatever they are doesn't matter in terms of the specifics. But if he's looking to build on Bitcoin, do you see that as a developer as being a major hindrance?
Current Bitcoin, yeah. There's only so much stuff that you can put in with a Bitcoin transaction, like a memo, for instance, that really gets you to a place that lets you do interesting stuff, right? I think the space available on Bitcoin is just like 40 characters long, which isn't even enough to put other information in, say, like an IPFS hash. You need like probably 60 characters or 64 characters before you get to something useful in my mind.
Okay. Now, right now, it seems, and for the past X number of months, we could categorize you as an infrastructure guy. That seems to be a lot of your focus is building infrastructure, layer two infrastructure, in keeping with this idea of decentralization and distribution, and trying to get away from the control apparatus that's out there. Even within the crypto world, you've aligned yourselves, or they've aligned with you. I don't know how it came about, with the Speak Network team. And of course, their goal is immutability, and giving communities control over their data and their content, and of course, over their finances. And one of your big projects that rolled out was Honeycomb. And I think we talked to you about this the last time you were on. You had just rolled it out. Where does Honeycomb stand, and what's been the evolution of that over the last couple of months? In fact, maybe you should go in and reiterate what is Honeycomb for those who missed it and don't know.
It's just the let's say I built a token software for Deluxe, which is the project that Mark and I have, and it was in response to just not fast enough work on like the Steam blockchain. We're not even on the Steam blockchain anymore. But even here on Hive, like smart media tokens aren't going to be a thing. So it really was just like how does our community get these functions into its software. So Honeycomb it's just the features that I wanted and can provide pretty easy. So right now we have 3, possibly 4 or 5 communities now that are using Honeycomb to solve their own community token systems. So Duat is Ragnarok. It is the name of the underworld in Egyptian mythology. It's going to be tracking NFTs on that game, so it does have NFT stuff going with it. The Speak Network is using it for their Speak claim chain, which is getting the most of my attention right now in terms of contracts and other things you can add to Honeycomb that makes it really easy, because it is a smart contract platform in the community aspect, not necessarily as free and open as Ethereum is, where you pay a gas fee and you get whatever you want. But if you can get everybody to agree on what software to run, then you have a smart contract platform on Honeycomb. So that's what Speak Claim Chain is doing, and we're getting to the point where we're establishing multiple tokens on that Honeycomb system. So you'll have Speak and Broca, as well as the Larynx token that we airdrop to everybody.
So right now, Honeycomb is essentially a token creation system, a software.
Yes, and I'm not going to say it's like the easiest thing in the world to use, but once you have it set up and you understand what's going on in there, it's really powerful. It should be as powerful as some other systems that are available for like Sawtooth or things in the Hyperledger market from the IBM Linux community.
And, well, if I can tangent for a second, just because I don't know, John, we seem to have a run here of people with developer background, so I keep asking the same question, waiting for you to jump in at any time.
We need people, like every now and again, we need some people that are, like maybe I'm not going to say my level, because that would just be absolutely like awful for, like, can you get someone with John's technical knowledge on here? No, that would be horrible. We appreciate it. I know Tass does. I learn a lot. So I'm just saying, I'm the guy who has to press the button and it turns on, because anyways.
I've asked this question over the last couple of weeks, each developer, just because it's getting a lot of attention and it's getting close to rolling out. But if you've taken a look at it, and I don't know how much you've investigated it, but as it gets closer and as it looks like it's being finalized, what is your impression of Half and what it brings to the ecosystem? The Hive application framework that Block Trades and his team is putting together, from a developer's perspective. And what do you think this does, not only for the Hive ecosystem, but does it do anything for Deluxe and what you're trying to do there?
It could very well work very well with some of the stuff we're doing. And from what I understand is it really lets you use Hive more towards your own purposes, so you can have your own indexing set up. Um, Currently, we don't have. I mean, there's things that I can think of that it would be nice to have, but where we're at right now, it doesn't need half. So I haven't looked at it much further than if I can set up a node or whatnot.
Okay. And getting back to what you create, and this is kind of going to a general approach question for, I think, most of blockchain and crypto. It's and I got a lot of this obviously listening to Dan and Matt and how they approach things. And I remember Hester Pierce talking about her proposal a few years back where give projects 3 years to decentralize from a regulatory standpoint, and then if they're not, then they fall under the securities laws, and if they do, then they're not under securities laws. But it appears to me that, and whether it's just human tendencies or whatever, projects don't tend to evolve towards decentralization unless there's somewhat of that intention from the start. And we saw it with Steam, where there was that ninja mind stake, and okay, this will be the communities to go to development, this will spread the tokens out, and it ends up being sold to Justin Sun. And Hive took care of that by saying, okay, we know this is a danger, so let's just fork it out and decentralize it right off the bat, where it's locked into an account and just is distributed for development and other projects the community deems for its benefit. It appears to me, and I guess there's two questions. The first question is, do you agree with that? And is that how it has to be, where you start from the get-go saying, okay, this is going to be built decentralized? And is that a major premise in everything you do? Because it appears to me that's how you start in everything you're looking at doing, is you want it decentralized. You don't want it in your control. You're building this stuff with the intention of it spreading out.
That is very much the way I approach things, but I also approach things from the mindset that I can't pay for anything up front. I don't want to necessarily ask people for money. I don't want to do that, because if I can do it, then anybody else can, and it's not, on the path toward decentralization. So getting those services up and running right now, where you have the benefit of decentralization, should be, I mean, there's some higher costs involved because everybody has to do it, but at the same time, it should be much lower because everybody's doing it. So if we can say, like, storage nodes for IPFS, or some streaming servers for like this program right here, that we should be able to do it now and have it done for a lot cheaper, instead of saying like, okay, we're gonna build up this and spin it up and in the future decentralize it. And I don't think that's the way that it's gonna go, especially knowing just how things get developed in the first place. Like, if you have a rocket chat or something, it's somebody went to a hackathon or something, and they're like, hey, let's do this. And inside the weekend, because you didn't have any legacy code, you've built an entirely new platform or a new product. So there's really no point in making this stopgaps, unless, I don't know. The market currently is like, build users as fast as possible, and the way to do that is to give them the best user experience. So if that's the way to go, and that's what you're trying to get your community to go for, that's, I guess, the only way to go for it. But that's just not the way that I've been coding.
Yeah, you bring up a point there that I hadn't even factored into this conversation, at least. But when you bring up the money factor, that adds another layer, because typically what that means, and mentioning Mark Andreessen, that means venture capital. But whether it's a Mark Andreessen, or whether it's some backroom deal going to your Uncle Eddie or whatever, eventually somebody throwing up the dollars is going to want that return. And in my opinion, this is one of the shifts we watched in Web 2. And that's where you had the Facebooks of the world and the Twitters of the world. And you had all these applications that were funded to one degree or another with VC money. And the initial, because most VC contracts are about 8 years, VCs take a long-term view. The apps were built and users were attracted because they made them, like you said, the goal was to appeal to the user base to get people on. And so, over time there were more features added and it was more excited and people played different games on the app and all this stuff, and the amount of people grew. But then the VCs all of a sudden turned around and said, okay, now you got to start making money. We want to be paid. And that's when all of a sudden people are intrusive of advertising and getting overwhelmed and all this other stuff, and their data is being taken and then sold, and all this that takes place. And so I guess the question is, and we were kind of joking before coming on air, Web 2.5 and all this VC money that's flown into quote unquote Web 3, is that really going to impact Web 3 long term? I mean, I guess theoretically you could have some applications that are very successful. They don't have to be decentralized. There's nothing wrong with centralized applications. People can use them. People know what they're getting. But that's where I went back to saying, like, infrastructure, as long as the infrastructure is decentralized and what's built on top of it is centralized, okay, you have an app, and if it becomes onerous for the users, that app ends up dying. Users leave, something else enters the market. So do you see this as I don't know what to call it, a tug of war maybe, as we're trying to find our way, and we're trying to find more people like you who say, listen, yes, it's easy, it's quicker if I go and get 50,000 or 100,000 or 50 million or whatever the number is from these financial people. But at the end of the day, I'm going to end up screwing my application and my project because they're going to want to be paid. Is that basically where we're at, trying to find more of you?
Maybe, but things like this will always come out of necessity, and we see that all the time. Like, how many Truth Socials got spun up? I know you can't see. Truth Socials got spun up in a matter of like weeks after somebody got kicked off YouTube or whatever. So you just see, like, these things are really easy to build once they're built once, and like you said, if somebody comes along and has this great idea, even if it was funded by VC, as long as somebody else can like reverse engineer it a little bit, you'll have that idea pop up in other places. So I'm not even against standard innovation or standard ways to make companies, but yeah, I'm not necessarily focused on building companies as much as I am communities.
So you're basically part, and to me, and maybe I'm off in my view here, but to me, when you say companies and communities, to me, I think that strikes to the difference between Web 2 and Web 3, and that's in the ownership model. Going from companies that have shareholders and users, and they may overlap, they may not. And then you also have employees, of course. So you have three stakeholders there, some of who overlap, some who don't, to go into communities where you could have some difference. Some could invest and not use it, but typically the users are going to be the investors, are going to be the ones who have the stake and the influence and have the concern. So to me, that's really the shift we're talking about, is in the ownership model.
Yeah, definitely the ownership. Honestly, I don't see too much of a difference between a stack of bylaws and a DAO. They're just instructions for how to change the standard operating methods and procedures of the group of people. But it is that ownership. It is crossing borders. It is interacting with people in a free way. And don't like it, hit the copy button. Start slightly fresh.
That was, dude. That was like quotable what you said, man. I want to highlight it just because this is really important. You said you're not as interested in building companies, interested in building communities, and you're seeing that shift everywhere. This seems to be the new model. A lot of people talk it, right? I mean, that's the cool thing. Just like, metaverse is the term and Web3 is the term. Community is this buzzword that people seem to attach to things. I got a question for you to kind of like, I did this post yesterday that was talking about Hive and how, Hive has got so much use case, so much development, so much, you know, actual like community. What is it that we have that like others try to emulate, but they never get it right? Like, what is it at the core of this place that we get community? Because what you said, I think, is so true. It's community first. The companies will form after the community is built. But what is it that we have, for whatever reason, people can't duplicate?
There's good and bad things that Hive have, and honestly, it is both the good and the bad things that people like about Hive. Um, when you see something that you don't like, you take a little bit of ownership and you go out to other people and say like, "Hey, this sucks," or whatnot. And I see it everywhere. It's it's not just that you can see it and you care about it, and it's not just that it's good or bad. It's that you feel like you can change it, and that's not something somebody says like with Facebook. The way to change Facebook is to say, "Oh, I'm going to go to True Social or whatever other platform there is." There's
Right.
very few people that have tried to say like, "Oh, I'm gonna leave Hive and go start Blurt." How many people are active at Blurt? And of course, that is exactly the kind of people that you need to have. Like, oh, did they actually do something that made their environment better, or did it make it worse? What things that they do can we implement? And even if they go away, we haven't stopped learning from them. So I really appreciate the way that not only our community is focused on users because of the free transactions. That's number one. Like, I couldn't build anywhere else because there's just no free transactions. So you're cutting out everybody who's basically poorer than you, and the ability to actually change what you're in. So it's a big technical debate club.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I agree with that. I've written a number of articles over the last year and a half, where I think one of the major, and John mentions community, and I guess you can break it down, and he's asking what makes Hive successful, if you will. And you can define community in a lot of ways, and a lot of people in your community are just, I don't know what the term is, maybe not real dedicated. They're haphazard. They're once in a while, which is fine. You could have a community of LA Laker fans, and you got the ones who will never miss a Laker game, and they'll be on the forums in the off season, and they watch every rumor and every transaction. Then you have other people who, oh yeah, I'm a Laker fan, but I maybe see 10 games a year and that type of thing. But I root for the Lakers, and I'll tune into the playoffs or whatever. With Hive, there seems to be a core group of people who have what I'll say is the ownership mindset. You mentioned that, where you take ownership, and if you don't like something, you can speak out and you can write an article. You can get on Discord and get with other people who are involved in some way, shape, or form. Or if you have technical expertise like you do, you sit there and say, "Holy shit, I'm not getting what I need. Nobody else is building this, so screw it. I'll go build it myself." And then all of a sudden, other people like Dan and Matt see what you're doing and say, "Hey, this is what we're doing. Is there a way that we can combine this?" And next thing you know, it's like, well, their tokens are on Honeycomb, and Honeycomb's being incorporated, and they're probably, I'm sure, giving you a laundry list of things that they'd like you to build that they can add, and it just a very big laundry list, and it just grows from there. And over time, as the updates and the code gets expanding and the feature set expands, it doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen in 3 months or 6 months, but over the period of a year, 2 years, next thing, all of a sudden, everybody has that all aha moment and says, "Holy shit, look at what Steve built. Look at what Speak Network Incorporated." And it's only because you took ownership. The Speak guys took ownership, and maybe there's other people involved who will jump on next week or 2 months from now or whatever and come to you and say, "Hey, Steve, can we do this on there?" And you're like, "Yeah, okay, let's do it."
Yeah.
It's great. This place is just, it's like you said, true ownership. It's community, and it's fascinating to me. And I'm beating a dead horse here, but it's fascinating to me why all of these influence, in the bunny ear quotes, talk about Web3, talk about community, talk about decentralization, talk about all this stuff, yet Hive is the furthest thing from their mind. And it blows me away. I mean, as a developer, do you look at that and do you get frustrated? Do you get like, we got the best mousetrap here, no one else can even compete? Like, what how do you look at it? Like, we're here, but we get no publicity at all.
That's kind of it. Like, if there is nothing to build additionally, there's not a lot of reasons to come over here and do it. And at the end of the day, almost anybody who calls himself an entrepreneur is looking for the bag. And if you already have an established platform, it's a lot harder to get your piece of the bag. But you do see it. People do come over here and they buy Hive, they invest in Hive and whatnot. But it's not the same kind of people who are just gonna, start up the next Dogecoin and say like, hey, let's build a new payment system, and it's the exact same as any other payment system that's built in crypto. So the first mover advantage here is awkward. That's the only thing I can say about Hive. You have an entrenched community that likes what they have, and there's no real impetus to add more stuff to it at this point.
So is that hurting us? Would you say that, like, because when I'm saying in general, like when I'm saying, hey, no one's coming here, that's not fair. Obviously, there's tons of you guys. That's not what I mean. Is like, just like you said, the people would rather see. They seem to be more attracted to Doge and Ethereum, because that's where all the flashy cool kids are, apparently, where all the NFTs are built and where all the, the Bored Ape stuff is and the OpenSea stuff. Like, that's, so it's just I'm not saying that, like, there's no one here building. Obviously, we're all
where the money is too.
Right. And like, that's my frustration as an entrepreneur is like, yes, this is the best place. Why aren't more people? Why can't these influencers see that if they started posting here, if they started talking about this stuff, they could be first movers and actually have an advantage, instead of, oh yeah, I've always been on Hive, and they post like once every 2 years when there's a pump.
What's the name for this, where something has greater perceived value because it costs more, even though it's the same kind of value? So if you want to make an NFT or even a new community on Ethereum, you're still issuing a new like ERC20 token, and you have that same thing where like I can give myself whatever bag I want. Not only that, like if you want to build an NFT on Ethereum, it's going to cost a lot more just in those transaction fees. Does that mean that it's better? Is it more secure? Is it shinier? And then it's like the off-brand thing. Like, are these Air Jordans, or they're like Air whatevers that, whatever. They're not actually the Air Jordans. So are people going to see that and say like, this is just some off-brand thing? It is a marketing thing at the end of the day, but that's a hard thing. I don't know how to fix that. I can't think about how to fix that. That's not my wheelhouse.
Well, this brings up a question in this conversation to me. And I've concluded that we are better off being this way. But the question is, are we better off being out there, being known, being the Ethereum, being an alternative to Ethereum, being EOS, Ethereum, Tron, Hive, all in the same sentence? Or are we better off flying under the radar? And I believe we're better off flying under the radar because it allows us to get our ducks in a row. It allows people like you to build what you're building. Well, obviously, in my opinion, one of the drawbacks has been that we haven't really had true smart contract capabilities, which is a hindrance for developers. And, Hive's a very, very tight, very specific blockchain into what it does at the base layer. So we need these, and in my opinion, needs to be decentralized, layer 2 infrastructure that allows for smart contract and that type of stuff. And so, with all the regulation, with all the attacks, and with all the big money players who are apt to play their games and start hitting liquidity pools and everything we've seen, I think it's advantage that we're flying under the radar. Yeah, it sucks for our token price, but it allows us to actually build value to things like HBD, to build value to Hive, to get the utility out there, to get infrastructure through Deluxe or through Half and some of these other these other pieces of software and code and databases and whatever out there that allows for quicker and more widespread development down the road. Not necessarily at this point in time, but down the road. And so it's the, I guess the tortoise and the hare, and being old enough to remember the first trend with the internet. I look back at a lot of those first movers, and guess what? They're no longer here. And everybody likes to say, well, if best technology doesn't always win. And that is true. But there's a lot of early leaders who end up in the graveyard, and companies like Google come out later and crush the XGs.
Yeah.
Timing, right? Would you like,
Yeah,
sometimes
which
you're
was
too
better,
early.
HD DVD or Blu-ray? At the end of the day, they did kind of the same thing. It was just availability marketing. But we do have, like you mentioned, HBD, and you do have everybody else who has their own algorithmic stablecoins. And it is a testament to us that our stablecoin has only gotten more stable while others have gotten less stable. So we've not only been answering those questions for a lot longer than other people, but we've been practicing and making those answers better.
Well, and I think, just going down the stablecoin route just quickly, the simple fact is, if you want to take just the top line difference between UST, Luna, and HBD Hive, and you can even throw USDD Tron in there. Hive has value. Hive has, John likes to use this term, utility. There is a certain amount of value in Hive because you need it to interact with the blockchain. You need it for governance. You need it for staking. You have to stake it for proposals. You have to stake it for block producers and witness modes. So there is that inherent value in there. And now we got RC delegations that evidently will be in the next hard fork, which I think adds another layer of utility to that, because now applications can load up on Hive or an HP and then delegate the resource credits to help their users. And basically, it turns Hive into an access token. It's not really it's not like gas where that's a transaction fee token. This is more access. You need it to get there. And I know some of your project, to run some of these nodes, you have to stake a certain amount of Hive, I believe it is. It may not be an overwhelmingly amount. I think it's 100 or 150 Hive that you have to stake per node. But think down the road, if Honeycomb and your software takes off, and there's 100,000 nodes out there, which 100,000 nodes globally is not a lot, but even 10,000 nodes, each requiring 150 Hive power a piece. That starts to add up when you put all this together. So I think that's another thing that really adds to our stable coin, is the fact that the backing asset does have utility, and hopefully we're growing the utility to the point where there's more reason to hodl Hive than, no offense to the marketing side, but there's actually intrinsic reasons to hold Hive because, hey, this isn't just a pump and dump. I get to do things by having Hive.
Yeah. I really appreciate the ecosystem here. And I'm not saying like transactions haven't gotten a little cheaper on Ethereum or anything like that, but Ethereum has a very large gun, the ability to make those smart contracts of whatever you want. And you pay for that. And here we have, a social media post without smart contracts, so things can be a lot cheaper. That doesn't mean you can't build on top of those as well with our layer 2 technologies coming out. So this is where I'm at, because I think it's more important to have everybody have access to these kind of things instead of paying a gas fee.
Well, I think, and John and I learned this talking to Brian of London, and you said the same thing. Brian of London said his Podping, he couldn't build it on Ethereum. Hell, he couldn't even build it on BSC or Polygon because every single broadcast that is, quote, pinged out would cost him, even if it's a penny. You start to add that up over the course of a day, over the course of a week, over the course of a month, over the course of a year. It adds up. And especially if this gets to be more and more popular and he's sending out, instead of 5,000 pings a day, he's sending out, 10,000 or 100,000 or whatever it amounts to. He couldn't actually build that on Ethereum because, at even $5 or $2 a pop, you'd end up broke. And like you said, your projects, you couldn't build them without the feeless transactions.
Right. Or close to feeless.
Yeah, I mean, you have to lock up some high power, but then if you, like we said about the nodes, if you have 150 high power, that's probably for whatever those nodes are transaction. I presume they're custom JSONs. They could probably transact all day with the blockchain and never run into a problem, at least in the foreseeable future.
Right. Yeah, 150. We're blasting off one custom JSON every 5 minutes, and nobody's having any problems. So that's constant use all day long.
The other thing that I think is very important, and we talk about the base layer and comparing it to the Ethereum and stuff like that, but I'm going to have to write an article about it. It's been a while since I wrote an article about this one. But the Hive account management system is wildly powerful. And, the fact is that any developer can come into Hive and not have to worry about accounts whatsoever because the blockchain provides that. And so you have this base infrastructure that as a developer, you're not paying for directly. You are able to tap into the Hive account management system, integrate that into anything you build. And so all the login, all that other stuff, once you tap in and integrate the key system, it's all handled by the blockchain. And I think that's something, and I've written in the past, log in with Hive. That's something, I mean, we know Twitter, we know Facebook, we know Google accounts. That's very popular. Log in with those. And we're trying to expand our reach by having apps like Leo Finance is now allowing you to log in with a Twitter account. And that's all well and good. But in my utopian Web3 world, I see that actually flipping where other applications say, I'm going to use Hive at least just for the account management system. And, okay, log in with Hive and you can log in with your Hive account, even if they're not really tied to Hive, other than that's how they manage the accounts on their platform.
We also see things like that going forward. And I don't think it's going to just be Hive, but working on the ability to get other people's keys and transacting on other chains, we're definitely working toward that. There's a system called Ceramic, which you might have heard around, and we're actually hoping that we can get basically free accounts onto Hive, or at least using our layer 2s, using these methods.
Can you walk through how something like that would be structured, how it will work? I mean, I'm having a tough time imagining it, and I presume others are. So how would something like that look and work in both structure and practice?
Well, if you have a wallet somewhere, say like a MetaMask wallet, you can sign a transaction with your keys for something else. So if you need to prove that you own some kind of Ethereum, then that could be a thing where you say, like, I'm signing this transaction with the same keys that I have with this Ethereum, for instance, but it's not tied just to Ethereum. Hopefully any cryptographic key, so any wallet would be able to sign these transactions, so you wouldn't be limited to a certain blockchain. The hard is, because Hive does have this really nice account management system, we don't have at-will accounts like other chains have. Like on Bitcoin, you just say, like, here's some random numbers, I have an account now. we don't get to do that. We say like, oh, this account name available, and these are the keys that I want to use with these accounts. So in order to get the information from your Ethereum, your MetaMask wallet into a layer 2, we have to set a P2P layer so that our layer 2s are actually making their own blocks, and that those blocks would be ordering transactions from other people. So when you sign whatever application, say you want to post a video on ThreeSpeak, you sign it with your Ethereum keys instead of getting a Hive account, which may cost like $3 or more in the future. Who knows? Our layer 2s would be able to say like, okay, the person signed and this is the time. So the ordering, the same thing with the blockchain system, and then putting those blocks into, say, IPFS, for instance, and putting those out to the world. So it would just be a little bit of extra software on our layer 2s. It wouldn't affect Hive at all. But as soon as we have that ability, then you have the ability to put, layer 2 tokens into Ethereum accounts, build bridges, do, everything that we talk about now, but just one more layer out.
So what you described there then actually doesn't touch Hive under the scenario you just spelled out, because I log into to ThreeSpeak with my Ethereum account, with my MetaMask, and I post a video that goes into IPFS, and of course there's no video storage on Hive. So I guess ThreeSpeak does technically send the text to Hive. And so I would presume it would be the same in that context. I don't know, maybe it would change and all that data would just be housed in IPFS and not touch Hive. So then what you're basically doing is you're giving the capability to the application, but it's not even on Hive then. Is that correct? Am I following along?
That is definitely one way to use the system that I mentioned, 100%. But it doesn't stop other chains from using the same ceramic technology so that you can sign your Hive keychain account and get some feature functionality on an Ethereum blockchain or a layer 2 or anything.
Oh, okay. So the reverse would be I could use my Hive credentials to do an Ethereum transaction, let's say, or a Bitcoin transaction or a Polygon or whatever
On
into it.
mostly on a layer 2 somewhere, unless there was a base layer that was just built on these kind of transactions, which is possible as well. But if it was on Ethereum, it would be on an Ethereum like layer 2.
Oh, okay. So on Ethereum application, but not at the base layer of Ethereum.
Right.
So
Because hopefully the idea is that we wouldn't be paying for gas fees doing this.
oh, okay. I see what you're saying. So I can actually interact with I don't know, let's say a gambling app that's built on Ethereum. And I could use this ceramic. I could sign in with my Hive account. I can interact with the app, but I'm not paying $2 every time I gamble. I can bypass that.
Right. So you'd send your Hive tokens to somebody to wrap them up in your gambling app, and now you can use your Hive account to sign these transactions without paying the additional gas fees. But you still know where those tokens came from.
And would that transaction be housed on Hive then? That would be
That would be housed on the layer 2 of whatever you're interacting with.
Oh, okay.
So
On the
not
layer.
on the Ethereum base layer unless the layer 2 records these things on the base layer, but it would be your way to interact with a computer system that's built on a blockchain, uses the blockchain credentials, but without having the overhead, which is going to be important because bloat on these systems is, has to be dealt with by everybody who runs a copy of it.
So basically, you're looking at then the layer 2 is really, I mean, unless it's just built through like you're doing with nodes, with many different nodes. So you're basically building a blockchain on top of a blockchain, if that's the right way of phrasing it. But the application itself would probably just be a server-based system, correct?
The servers would still be nodes on the network. It would be, I know Ethereum is a little different because you can build layer 2s inside of their system. But if you have the like Bitcoin Lightning Network where you're doing your computing off chain and then you consolidate everything to put it on chain, is more of the layer 2 structure that I'm thinking when I'm speaking in this or speaking to this.
Okay, so let's go back to honeycomb because that's a prime example. So you have this honeycomb architecture, and there's a bunch of nodes, and Speak network is already setting up some nodes. So I think they said they got 40 or 50 nodes running. So that's infrastructure. It's decentralized. There's 40 or 50 nodes that all sync up with whatever they're syncing up, whatever the data is and the transactions. So now if I come and I build an application on top of that node system, and maybe the application I built, some of what I utilize is sent through to the Hive blockchain. Much of it is not. Much of it will just be housed in that node system on the layer 2. Is that the proper understanding? So all of a sudden, most of my transactions, let's say 95%, are in those nodes in Honeycomb, but then maybe 5% I have to send it through the blockchain because it does involve tokens or it involves whatever.
Right. So it'd be like when you're thinking of free speak right now, you have the video portion, which is on chain, and then you have the financial portion, which is on chain.
Okay. Okay. And so the idea is then now with Honeycomb is just to take ThreeSpeak away from the server-based entities that they have and ultimately throw it on the infrastructure, the node infrastructure that is being utilized that you created. So now that's where the immutability comes in because whoever's running these nodes, presuming they're not all just one person like with BSC, and sock puppets, you have people all over the world, communities running their own node system, and ThreeSpeak or whatever the community is sets up a front end, and then they tie into Hive, they tie into IPFS, they tie into wherever they're sending, whatever the storage and the data is.
Right. So yeah, it's the same thing. So ThreeSpeak has, say, an AWS or a centralized server where they put their videos. Now you want to distribute videos across their user base. So how do you do that? And in order to make sure that happens and verify it happens, you need another financial aspect to it. So that's where the tokens come in, and the whole architecture is trying to be made to facilitate the goal of storing video and other files.
And what you're doing, just to go one step further with what you've already built with the tokenization and creation ability, is then you have, and we'll use ThreeSpeak since it's what we know. So then you have the dual reward system. You have the basically two systems that you're talking to because an upvote could be the community token that's built on Honeycomb, and at the same time it uses Hive account management. So it transmits to the blockchain, and my upvote also uses my voting power at the base layer too. Is that correct?
That could be correct.
Could be.
On
They want
ThreeSpeak, we're not really working toward a proof of brain model in terms of the actual content of the video, but the proof of brain model would be the infrastructure. We're rating the infrastructure, like how fast can I get this video from you? How much video are you storing? How long are you storing it? Those kind of aspects instead of like, do I agree with your opinion or how nice your video is?
But a community that tokenizes certainly could, depending on whatever their application is and what they're doing, could have, just like Hive Engine has, Hive Engine proof of brain tokens, and then you of course have Hive. You could have on Honeycomb, you could have the Honeycomb token. So this community creates a token for the basket weaving group, and they pass out baskets every time based upon their upvotes, and then of course there's Hive based upon their high power.
Yes, absolutely. And not only that, like that system is built into Honeycomb. So you just turn it on with a little flag that says, I want proof of brain.
Now, what in addition to, because I think we have an example with ThreeSpeak that is very evident. What would you say if you had to throw out, if you think about Honeycomb, what other use cases come to mind for this technology, the software that you developed? we understand video storage and stuff like that, but is there some things that really come to mind that strike you that says this is perfect infrastructure for this use case?
Honestly, the decentralized technologies that we currently use, I think would be perfect to put on a layer 2 like this, especially if we have it separated so you don't have to use Hive as a payment platform. And in that, I mean like Airbnb, Uber, or anything that you would say this is the Uber of would be something that I would like to put on these platforms. And then just a teensy bit further than that, I really think that anything that the government uses to allocate funds should and could be put on blockchains or systems like this.
Such as like
Road repair or building roads or financing hospitals or a mural in your community. It doesn't matter. Like if a government is associated with allocating those funds, why not?
Yeah, that's that's giving a lot of credit to being transparent in government.
That is, but
Heaven forbid, right? I mean,
that's the goal. At the end of the day, like there's just so many times, like Los Angeles is spending something in the neighborhood of $400,000 to put handicap access ramps on each intersection. So that's $100,000 for slightly sloped yellow concrete at each corner of an intersection, and like that doesn't compute for me. I'm sure the people who are voting for it are like, cool, handicap ramps, and they don't really think about this is going to cost $100,000 for every piece of sloped concrete in the city. Wow. And yeah, it really does get to that. Like, I can't pay for that. I don't know. I don't know how anybody like looks at those things in the budget and is just like, all right, yeah, of course we can support this.
I bet
And
we could find a bunch of people to do it for 10 grand.
Oh
Correct.
yeah,
I mean,
I'm
and
sure
clean
you can
up.
get it done
heck,
real
I'd do it
easy.
for 10 grand, man. I don't even know what I'm doing. I mean, that's all you'd get with me, but
Yeah.
Uh,
So yeah, I definitely think that in the future, like blockchains are going to be taking the role of what we consider government a lot because people are fed up with it all over the place.
Yeah, I've came at it from the financial angle, but I think one of the big things that blockchain can offer is property rights, and we have, and everybody talks about those areas, especially third world countries, where all of a sudden your family's been on a farm or a piece of land for 150 years, and somebody shows up saying, "Get off the land. This is my brother-in-law's land." And you say, "No, it's not." "Yes, it is." And then, of course, behind them is three guys with machine guns who say, "Yeah, it is." But there's actually a bigger use case when you go into the Limas and Cairos and into these countries that aren't necessarily third world, they're second world nations. But you go into these cities because of bureaucracy and regulation and a host of reasons. They find, people have researched this, like 95% of the construction wasn't done legally. There were no permits. There was nothing. They're extra legal. They're outside the legal system. And where that's a problem from the financial end of things is these properties have value, $5,000 or whatever, because there's utility. You can live in them, and there's people who own them and that type of thing. But there's no documentation. So how do you go and collateralize this because there's no documentation? Well, with blockchain and NFTs and that type of stuff, now you suddenly can have property rights in the virtual world tied to these physical real world assets. And it doesn't matter what the government says. How do we know you own that? Because I got the NFT and here's the key to it and it's in my wallet and this is mine.
Yeah, I can see property management systems going on here, and we can get into like permits and stuff like that. You said extra legally. What about insurance? So
Mm.
like I have a building that I built without a permit. At what point can I say like I want to insure this building? And you're getting into this continuing like financial aspect of a different thing. So it could be that we legitimize a lot of these properties by saying like, okay, the insurance comes out here, they do their inspection, they're like, hey, this is a nice safe handrail. I would give you insurance to live in this house or something like that, and now you have a continuing like record of what's going on as well. So like, hey, this is past inspection, it's probably fire safe. Even if it wasn't built to a code or inspected during that, you can get pretty far with that.
Well, and then it will go one step further. What happens if you use DeFi and the liquidity pool concept as your decentralized insurance? So now somebody throws up the NFT through an app and says, I need, $50,000 worth of insurance. And, okay, here's my payment for the next 12 months. It's time stamped. And so they throw it into the liquidity pool. And, there's some type of process in the smart contract that they have to go through if they put in a claim. But then all of a sudden liquidity pools are actually insurance pools.
Yeah, and not even a bad way to do it, because everybody's after the same thing there. You're not after the different kinds of things that insurers and their customers are usually after. Yeah, it comes back to something closer to a community, closer to like a church or something that where everybody has the same sense of belonging and purpose, I guess is what it comes down to.
Well, and then you get into the community and the knowledge base and the expertise. And so suddenly I join a liquidity pool in an insurance based liquidity pool, let's say, because it's insurance something I know about, let's say, automobiles. I'm an automobile expert. But then there's other pools that insure the pitching arms of major league pitchers, because and people get involved in that, understand medicine and understand that type of stuff. So like you said, even that can be built around community and what what you're interested in. And if you're not interested in something, I mean, I'm not going to invest in the insurance of art because I don't understand shit about paintings and art. So what do I know? I don't know what a Monet is worth, but somebody and people are in that and playing in that realm, they could get into that game instead of Lloyd's of London.
Monet or Bored Ape?
I don't know much about Bored Apes either. I think now that the bubbles popped, I think Bored Apes are worth less than Monets. But there was a point a couple months ago, I think Bored Apes were going for more than Monets. I don't quite know that.
Crazy.
Unreal.
What's next for you with Honeycomb and with Deluxe, and where do you go from here? What's your focus over the next 3 to 6 months?
Definitely building out some more stuff with the Speak Network. Mark has been doing a lot of his work. He recently got hired by a company. He's been going into the NFT world as well. But we're also still working on Deluxe, trying to get a new UI up for it, bring our NFT platform up to snuff. Yeah, my plates are always full, and then I've got some stuff in my personal life trying to find a place that is more permanent.
Dude, your internet's pretty good wherever you're at right now.
A corner. I mean, if there's any corners left in the house, he got stuck in one. Maybe he has an adjacent one that he can rent out to you.
There's one right here.
I'm looking to buy a piece of land somewhere and build my own house.
You're going off the grid, going old school.
Yeah, as soon as that Starlink satellite comes out, I'm like, ooh, I can go anywhere.
I've mulled that over and written articles and made videos, and I think we certainly are heading in the next 10 to 15 years into what I call the deglobalization of real estate, the globalization of real estate, which follows globalization that we saw 30 to 60 years ago. But that was from manufacturing, that was finding the cheapest labor. But I think because of what's taking place with technology, there's going to be a lot of, and I'll just use the term digital nomads. And we're already seeing migration within the United States and probably Canada too, due to other circumstances, taxes and regulation, all that shit. But ultimately, I think these countries are going to end up fighting over people and having to entice people. And you're going to see certain areas that are high priced right now that have a lot of high paying jobs. They basically have monopoly. But there's going to be a large amount of people who have the same mindset as you. Man, I don't want to be in Buenos Aires, or I don't want to be in New York. I don't want to be in London. I don't want to be in Tokyo. I don't want to deal with all these people and all this bullshit. And so they're going to go to countries that invest in a little bit in infrastructure, have hospitals, have airports that you can get back to, wherever you have to go, have roads, have some degree of safety, no civil wars and crap like that. And because of like Starlink and Blue Origin and all this other stuff that comes out, where if you got an internet connection and a laptop or a smartphone, you can work with cryptocurrency or development or whatever the case may be. I mean, people are just going to go all over the place and say, bag you with the U.S. government, or screw you, UK or Germany or wherever people are, because they can. And I see that as a major trend over the next 15 years.
I also see that. Yeah, there's just too much stuff happening nowadays. Like the number of friends that I have that are from, say, Europe, and they're just like, "Oh, Latin America is where I'm gonna set up shop." It's humbling just how many people are out here with the same mindset doing the same kinds of things.
Now, you're from the States, right, originally?
Yeah.
Um, Rewind in your life. Did you see yourself as again, use that term, I don't know if it's accurate for you or not, but a digital nomad, somebody who's moving around? I mean, did you always have the idea that, I'm going to live in another country? Or did you grow up like most Americans? I'm going to, buy a house, settle down, whatever, get a job, do the things, have a career. And then at some point in time that flipped. I mean, are you one of those who made a conscious decision long time ago this was going to be your thing, or did you kind of happen to fall into it?
Digital nomading was definitely, as soon as I heard the term and I was like, "Oh, that sounds cool." I was all for it. It took me a while to get into something, but my stopgaps were I was in the Navy for a while, so I traveled a lot, and
Mhm.
then I worked in hospitals. And by worked in hospitals, I mean I worked in hospitals from Mexico to Canada. So I've been to like almost every place in the United States. So I did like traveling, and I still like traveling. And now I've learned a few languages and whatnot, so I just like to keep going. But yeah, I always saw myself as somebody who wanted to keep learning. And there's only so much stuff that you can do when you're moving around and you're not like planting a root because you don't get to watch anything grow.
Mhm. That's very interesting. And I would presume you agree with me, John. I know certainly does. I think this process will only be accelerated due to cryptocurrency, because you take even a blockchain like Hive. I don't know how many people, quote unquote, earn their living off of Hive, but it is more today than it was 4 or 5 years ago. And we can presume that another 5 or 10 years from now, it will be more than are today. And as crypto gets bigger, and whether it's just people trading on tokens, whether it's people building software like you are, building companies like John and Blaine are, or people who just play to earn, or get rewarded in different things, run nodes and infrastructure. I mean, I haven't gotten into it, but I think one of the exciting things that I see about Honeycomb and what you're doing with Speak Network is, it appears that an average Joe like John and I, not technical in expertise, we have the ability to run nodes, support the network, A, but B, maybe generate a little bit of income off of it. And maybe it's not a lot running a node. Maybe I'll make $10 or $20 a month or $5 a month or whatever, but there's the ability to operate in the green with it. And this is another opportunity for passive income. So ultimately, like I said, down the line with that 10 or 100,000 node system, well, yeah, maybe $5 a month isn't a lot, but if John and I can do that 100 different times because there's all these opportunities. Now, if we're in a particular country that's a lot less expensive than Canada or the US, Now we're making $500 a month. We're covering half our living expenses just by being non-technical, but running node systems, decentralized node systems, supporting infrastructure. Is that, I don't want to say, is that one of your goals, but do you see that as a realistic possibility?
I do see that as a realistic possibility, and like you said, where you're like not thinking like, oh, I can make all my money doing this, because if a few people do that, then it's not going to leave a lot for everybody else. And you do keep it to the low end of things, because that's what it should be. Like, I don't think that the things that we do right now should alter the behavior of humans overall. I think the things that have happened in the past that have altered our behavior should start altering our behavior less. So we find better ways to do stuff. We're not doing laundry all day because it takes forever, but we put our laundry in a thing, and we have more time to do art or whatnot. So hopefully, when you say like you get $500, whatever, maybe that is a lot of what you need to actually live, because the cost of everything else will be coming down as more and more people provide their own services. Um, Hopefully, things will trend toward free for the average person.
Well, and you being involved in technology, you know damn well that technology is deflationary by its very definition. So it does drive down the costs of things, especially as it starts to decentralize out and move away from the vertical infrastructure more towards a horizontal infrastructure. And this could be, we see it with information now. We've seen that over the last 30 years with the internet. We've seen it with music. We've seen it with video. We're seeing it with shopping. We're probably going to see it with energy, with digital infrastructure, if you will. I mean, more of this stuff that is out there, and that type of things, games. It just goes on and on. And so I agree with you. I'm a firm believer that like cryptocurrency can increase the income side, the revenue side of our income statement, but the expense side can go down through a combination of technology and also this digital migration, or this migration where, for me to earn a living, I don't have to be in a top 100 city in the United States or a top 50 city in Canada, because I can go to whatever country, and as long as as long as I got Starlink and some power, I can earn a living through cryptocurrency.
Yep. Yeah, I definitely see that coming out a lot more in the future. And when people have more freedoms to travel around, I think the governments are going to be much less dicks, especially as we have the population crisis that is coming.
Well, that's
Where
a sexist comment. You got to say
sure,
dicks and
sure,
pussies.
no, governments in general are terrible. But as long as we have this thing where people aren't having as many babies and our population is going to go down, it's going to be a thing where you're going to have to say, like, as a government or as somebody who has the influence over these things, are we attracting people or are we pushing people away? And if people aren't your biggest commodity, uh, what kind of country do you have?
Yeah, I agree with that. I follow demographics. I immerse myself just because it has so much economic and financial impact. And when you look at the developed world, other than the United States, most countries are heading towards, in the developed world, demographic crises. Some, like Canada, are doing a good job of compensating through immigration. The United States does fairly well through immigration, but that's going to get tougher and tougher as other entities start to move up, like Mexico, and they start to move up the scale and wealth because they do have the demographics. They do, they'll start with low level manufacturing that's needed, but that will bring more and more wealth to that country. So those people won't be leaving in great numbers. And that starts to affect these other areas. And, I've read stories where it's not so much on a country basis, but a town basis, where in Japan, and there's a word for it, where these kids are inheriting homes in rural areas from their grandparents or their parents, and they're just not even going to them. They just don't even acknowledge them. They're falling apart. And you have these areas in Japan, these areas in Germany, these areas in Italy, rural areas where they'll give you a house. Okay, it may require a lot of work, but if you'll make a 5-year commitment and you're married with maybe a kid or something, they'll give you the house and the property, because it's like they want just to pull people to those areas because these towns are dying. And I see that as a trend moving across some of these larger population centers. As people get older, people start to die off. The economic impact is horrific. And then all of a sudden, like you mentioned, Latin America, let's just take El Salvador. We know El Salvador is on the cutting edge with the Bitcoin and the volcano bonds and all this other stuff, whichever's, we don't know how it's going to go, but they're moving in that direction. But what if El Salvador said, okay, if we invest a few $1 million in our airport, we start to invest in infrastructure, we build some more hospitals, we stop waging war every 20 years with Honduras, and we make nice with them, and we can attract 56, a $250,000 Americans making 50, 60,000 bucks a year, because our cost of living is like 18% of what it is in the most of the United States. And I don't think that's an outrageous mindset.
Yeah, it's a nice place for especially the people who don't feel like they can get on the property ladder and can get on it somewhere. And yeah, the reason everybody moved to cities was because the more people you had, the more earning potential you had, but there's a limit. And that usually comes in real estate as well. Like, you can't buy anything in a city without being very wealthy in some cases.
Well, cities, it was jobs, and cities, in fairness, it was the network effect, because, and you look back historically, you had everybody assembling in a city, the knowledge base there just exploded, and everybody could work off each other. But in the digital world, I mean, the three of us are in separate countries and we're having a conversation, exchanging ideas. You get on a call for the Speak Network, let's say on a developer call or on a project team call, and you got people all over the world that you all are exchanging ideas and adding, and you take something that Matt says or Dan says or Vaultek says, or they take what you say, and it's just the ideas just keep growing and expanding. And none of you are even in the same part of the world, not even the same time zone. So that aspect of cities is being diminished because, like you said, if we get on into a community like Hive, a digital community, we have the tools to converse and interact and make things grow. Again, John with CTP, him, Eliana, and Blaine are all in 3 different countries. Yet they operate like they're in the same office. They may have to negotiate some time zone differences, but when they get on a call, it's like they're all there's just a sheetrock wall between the 3 of them. They're in the same office and they go into a conference room.
Yeah, I have a lot of hope for the world. It's hard to look at the news and have hope, but I do have a lot of hope.
Well, that's interesting coming from somebody like you, because, and you're right, anybody watching the news, it's all doom and gloom. And the reason why I say coming from somebody like you is you're actually day in and day out building infrastructure for all this stuff. And you believe and you have an idea of the potential and the capability of this infrastructure and the impact it could make, because you build the infrastructure, then apps are built on it. And like you said, well, we can take what we're building now and on Honeycomb, I actually could replace like 60% of what the US government does. And you see that and you understand that, and you understand, well, okay, while there's these challenges here, in crypto, it's hard to read the crypto media and not find somebody who says, oh, well, this stuff is going to be stopped. There's no way the government will allow this. And you're sitting there, I'm sure, reading these same articles saying, dude, you can't stop this infrastructure. You can't stop this, because look at the infrastructure. What are you going to do? Take it down? Take down an AWS node? Okay, there's somebody else in another country running a node under his desk.
Yeah, keeping it as simple as possible. But not only that, like, if you're, I think in Florida, and you just see whatever somebody in Africa is doing, you're like, wow, that is a great idea. Why can't we do it over here? That's enough in itself to start the process to change the law. And even if it is slower for you in the first world to get the kind of services from these things, it doesn't stop them. It just means you're going to get in slower. Just like people in the third world were got a lot of the more modern services slower. It didn't stop them. They just got them slower. And because infrastructure is what it is. It takes a little while to change it, and if you don't have it, then it can change a little faster.
Well, but also there is a benefit in the United States to get the internet widespread. We ran a shitload of cable. Africa, yeah, they just put up mobile towers and they're all doing it on their phones. I mean, the internet, they didn't run cable to get online and to connect. They just skipped those first couple of generations, just said, okay, mobile's here, put up towers and you're good to go. So they actually benefited by being, I don't want to say maybe benefits not the right word, but they actually were able to accelerate things when they did start the implementation because they skipped the first couple of generations.
Right. And yeah, you can't necessarily do that. Like how hard are people fighting against Starlink in the United States? You're not really fighting against Starlink anywhere else. You're fighting against it in the United States, saying like, oh no, they're gonna break up our buildings and whatnot.
I'm
Or
not
not
fighting
buildings, but
against
our
Starlink.
business plans and all of our infrastructure.
I'm loving
Well, yeah,
Starlink.
and when you have a Starlink that ultimately has a potential market of 7.8 billion people, for them to find a few 100 million people, yeah, they may not get they may get blocked in the United States for a while because of the incumbent ISPs, but they will finance that from people like John who are in bumfuck wherever, who can't, get a signal from his local cable company or can't really doesn't have competitive phone service because there's not four phone carriers there all offering dirt cheap data. But now Starlink comes in and okay, it's right now a little bit costly, but it's probably in range of what he was paying. Um, and then all of a sudden that money goes to subsidize because, I'm sure people in Africa and many parts of Africa can't pay what John pays, but they don't have to because Starlink's getting the money from John, so they can offer it at maybe $10 a month or whatever the equivalent monetary value is for that country. And then at some point, like you said, where everybody in the United States is sitting there screaming, "Hey, I went on vacation to Canada and used this Starlink, and I'm stuck with this lousy cable operator."
Yep. It is what it is. Governments are just an extension of companies.
It seems that way. Seems that way.
Mhm.
John, any questions from the peanut gallery? I mean, we could go on about decentralization and digital
Yeah,
nomads and
no,
technology forever.
good audience again on Vim. Lots of people tuned in on Twitter as well. So it was good. No questions or anything. But good turnout. Good turnout. Good talk. For sure.
What do you think, Steve? What are your thoughts? Just if you could give us a quick wrap up. Where do you think? Where do you see Hive in a year and a half, 2 years? What's the potential here, and how optimistic are you about Hive going forward?
I'm terribly optimistic about Hive. Um, yeah, it's where I keep investing. It's where I see the most possibility for growth because I just think it's so undervalued. So why wouldn't I put more capital in it when I get more capital? Um, yeah, the stuff coming out, I just know that you could put a lot more stuff on it and get more people into this ecosystem. And as well, like even the stuff that we were talking about, like the ceramic accounts where you're putting stuff on layer twos and not even interacting with Hive at that level, it doesn't mean Hive isn't going to get more valuable, even if it is just the backbone for other people's infrastructure. No, I'm terribly excited about Hive and everything.
What one other question then as a follow up to that? When you look at, and again, I understand you're doing your thing, so you're probably not like John and I looking around and seeing all this other stuff out there. But you're obviously intimately knowledgeable about what Speak Network is doing. But are there certain things out there, if you could throw off a list of maybe three things, what excites you in terms of development, apps, projects, something like that, that excites you? When you look at it and you say, hey, this Speak Network, this Ragnarok, this, that, the other thing, these have great potential. What have you come across that really excites you?
Honestly, the things that excite me most are the things that are in that metaverse area, like with Deluxe. And every time I see somebody else have whatever they have, I'm like, that's cool, but I think our system was still better than that, or first at that, or this or that. And yeah, I don't see that changing. I don't see anybody else coming out with a more free method to put up this content or to distribute applications or anything. And because just what Deluxe is, it's application distribution, not just virtual reality. I really see that with everything. I don't see there being a computer based service that you cannot put on Hive with minimal effort.
Very cool. John, you got anything you'd like to add, or any questions? Or
No, I'd like to know if Steve wanted to stick around for the drawing, for the 3 names being pulled. If he wanted to stick around, if not, it's all good. We can do that also, but it's up to you, man.
Not really. No, I can duck off of here anytime.
Okay, all right. Well, you good to do that task right now? We'll do the.
Yeah, I have nothing else for Steve. So if you want to do the drawings, if Steve wants to hang around, he can. If he wants to split and go code some more, he can.
Vote by witness. That's all.
Steve has. Okay, we have no problem with shameless promotion.
Absolutely not.
Steve has a witness server. Go vote for that.
There you go.
Help move him up the scale.
Look at this beautiful wheel of love. Isn't this nice?
Oh, geez, that looks like an acid trip.
Yeah. Well, all the names are there. This is courtesy of Hive Blocks, the official Twitter account, and Guilty Party sent this to me. So we're going to pick 3 names. So, you excited?
I'm on the edge of my seat.
Yeah. Okay, here we go. First winner.
John, you and I love giving away stuff, so this is fun.
I'm a fan of it. Chaos Magic 20. So I'm gonna just take a picture because I don't have any.
You want me to write it down, or you got it covered?
Yeah, it's all good. Yes.
Okay, you got it covered. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, it's all good. Remove that name. So now there's 28 entries. So let's go again. That's congratulations to Chaos Magic 23 for the first win. Our next winner, Sakurama. All right. I'll take a picture of that just so I have it. And we'll remove that. That's our second winner. 27 entries. Do you have anyone in particular you'd like to see win? Task?
No, I am totally neutral on this. So
okay. Here we go. Here's our third
winner. I don't have a horse in this race.
Third winner is Blesker. There you go. So congratulations. What's that?
Excellent. Congratulations to all the winners. We
for sure. And this was the HODL Hive and HBD contest. Hive Blocks put it out on June 13th. So it was almost 2 weeks ago. They were to create an image art with the words HODL and Hive in the logo. Tweet it and tag Hive Blocks plus HODL Hive or HODL HBD. Reply here with the link to tweet and the account. And it was random draw of 3 prizes of 20 HBD each. So every single winner just got 20 HBD.
And love seeing them using HBD, building those use cases. In fact, I think, John, it's been a few months. Maybe we need to start thinking about putting together another contest, for ourselves, maybe 50 HBD, and
for sure
have a CryptoManiac contest for something. So I will give the audience a job to do. When John posts, if you don't mind, John, when you post your question post to get the questions,
right.
If you have an idea for a contest, please put it in there, and we'll keep asking that over the next couple of weeks and let you guys design a contest or something, and maybe we'll do that. So let's get a little interaction going here.
Perfect. Special thanks to Disregard from Deluxe for hanging out. And hope you guys enjoyed the show. And thanks to Elon Musk for Starlink. 'Cause it wasn't too shabby. I was worried, but it did okay. So
It did okay. And we have our question and answer on Friday.
on Friday.
And next Tuesday, we have a virgin cryptomaniac person. We have Jerry the Farmer. And if you're not following Jerry the Farmer, I would suggest it. I don't know a ton about his background, but what I do know is he's very knowledgeable in the DeFi arena. He has looked at a lot of DeFi projects. He has written a lot about DeFi. He's certainly worth a follow and a read on Leo Finance or on Peak D. And so hopefully we will get a lot of information about not only what he sees on Hive in terms of DeFi, but what else is out there and what's good. So it should be a very educational session.
Perfect.
And John can talk about DeFi. So
I'll talk about DeFi, aka Cub Finance and Polycub, because it's the only two other than the Hive stuff. But yeah. Anyways,
at least John, you understand the words.
Yes, I try to. Anyways,
so I understand.
Thanks for coming,
I appreciate that.
So congrats to the winners as well, and I'll send these names off to Guilty Parties. So he can check them off and get you guys your HBD. So thanks for tuning in.
Congratulations, everybody. And thanks for tuning in.
Toodles.